Hey, everybody. This is going to be a fun stream because this is a very interesting trial. And I have one of the few reporters that you're going to hear from directly who has been sitting in the courtroom. So that's pretty cool. And you may remember her from covering the Michigan kidnapping plot case, the January 6 defendants. She is a wealth of knowledge on all of this stuff, and she sees through a lot of the mainstream media BS. So I think she's going to give us perspective on this trial, not just because she already has, uh, very detailed research on a lot of cases she covers, but she's sitting in the trial. So she is not there right now. Obviously, she's back after being in court today, but she's got a lot to tell us. One thing she did tell me before we started, however, is that wine has played a significant role in this case. And we may start talking about that right away when I first bring Christina in, because it's a little odd. And though I do not necessarily recommend, because of this, that Johnny Depp or Amber Heard go to AllisonWinePromo.com, you should go to AllisonWinePromo.com and check out my favorite Malbecs from Argentina, because what goes better with real life story that feels like you're reading 50 Shades of Grey in court than a nice high altitude Malbec, right? You get 50% off of my favorite wines and 50% off shipping, and you get to support my channel, bringing you interviews like this. It's really helpful. Honestly, I know people sometimes don't like the ad reads, but I couldn't do this without my sponsors, and it is very helpful if you're a wine drinker anyway and you go to AllisonWinePromo.com, you get a significant discount on some amazing wines, one from the oldest vineyard in Argentina, one from a very high altitude, actually two are high altitude, one from almost 9,000 feet, the other from 8,600 feet, and then one that uses natural fermentation, which is pretty cool. So go check out AllisonWinePromo.com, and I'm going to bring in Christina right now so that we can talk about how wine wine has played an interesting role in what's going on. So, okay, yeah. Christina, maybe first, before we go to wine, we should tell people who are completely unaware of what's going on why Johnny Depp is in court right now with his ex-wife. Let's start there.
So we'll just start at the beginning. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have a very volatile relationship, and they got divorced in 2016, and they've been sort of litigating ever since then. There was a prior case about the same issue, basically around May of 2016, towards the end of their relationship. Some allegations were made by Amber Heard about domestic violence. And there was an incident where the LA police were called out, and basically everything stems from what happened that night and allegations that have come out since then. So they've been going back and forth in the public, slinging accusations at each other. They're both basically alleging that they were abused in one way or another by the other one. And I think what we're really witnessing here is sort of like a marital feud, but in the public. So this particular defamation case stems from a 2018 article that Amber Heard published in the Washington Post. There has been a prior case where he tried to sue her for libel in the UK. That was an article that was published in The Sun. He lost that case, but apparently there's new evidence that has come to light that he and his legal team did not get access to in time to get it in there. So that's what's happening here in this case. He wants to, I guess, bring that information to light, and he's alleging defamation. He's suing her for $50 million. She is countersuing him for $100 million. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, it sounds like a big mess. Somebody said that he has a tattoo that used to say Winona forever, and now it just says Wino forever, which does make him a great candidate for AllisonWinePromo.com. But again, we're about to tell you, it sounds like the last person that needs wine right now is Johnny Depp, and then second to him is Amber Heard. So let's talk real fast, Christina, because since we're on wine as the sponsor of the show, for people who don't need to go to court for $100 million defamation suits after drinking, maybe this is actually a good promo too for is it time to stop? Maybe put the drink down. Let's talk about wine real fast. You were saying severed fingers, broken glasses.
Yes.
I hope you're taking notes on this for a book someday.
Yeah, my notes, oh my gosh, I've got pages and pages of handwritten notes here that for some reason, I guess it's because I'm like autistic. I've just like front and back page, 10 pages each day of notes. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm basically writing word for word what everybody's saying. This is a transcription of the proceedings. It's so unnecessary. But there's things in there, though, that I guess you wouldn't know unless you've been in there in the courtroom. It's not the same watching it like from a live stream. I know Court TV, I think, is streaming it, but they're cutting parts out. And it's not the same as being in the room and talking to people during breaks and stuff like that. So as far as wine goes, oh my gosh. Apparently, both of these parties have problems with alcohol. Amber Heard really likes red wine. I think she's a Merlot drinker. And Johnny Depp loves his red wine as well. And apparently what happens is they both get a little bit intoxicated and yell at each other. And apparently some people throw wine glasses at the wall and sever people's fingers. And the stories, oh my gosh, that have come out. Some of it is very, it's just graphic and disturbing. Some of the allegations on both sides. So, but I do think that I'm going to say DV from now on, just because of YouTube. And I'm going to say SA for that kind of allegation, just so you don't get your channel flagged or demonetized for talking about this. But they are very serious allegations that have been made on both sides. And just some of the things that have come out already is it doesn't paint a good picture for either one of them, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just reading through some of the stuff that I've read so far, it's like there's not a clear good guy or bad guy in this. And I think maybe that's partially why Johnny Depp decided to bring this case, because originally it kind of was discussed that way, sort of maybe part of the Me Too movement. Actually in a second, I'll show you, I'm gonna try to bring it up real fast because Pointer wrote this article that I think, is probably one of the reasons why he wanted to go to trial with this, because if you buy this narrative, what the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case could mean for survivors who speak out in the media. While it likely will not create a new legal precedent, it could affect survivors' trust with the media. So this is a journalism think tank, really, like teaching journalists how to do their work. And they're already, I think, taking the side that she's a survivor. And I think that's probably what he's pushing back on, is that, it sounds terrible to say this, but it's like, is she a survivor, or did you guys just both beat the crap out of each other? And, who's the victim? Is there really one? And is it as clean cut as that? And because it just doesn't seem like, does Johnny Depp need 50 million? Like maybe she needs 100 million. I don't know. Allegedly they're both actors, but I don't even know what I've seen her in. But like for him, I just don't think he's in this for the money at all. It sounds like he just wants a lot of information to come out so that he hopes, this is my guess, that people walk away saying, which is pretty bad. You must feel really crappy if it's like, you want to go from what the current situation is, like where you beat the crap out of your wife, to, no, we just both suck at being married. We both beat the crap out of each other. I mean, that's the best scenario here.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly kind of what his goal is with this. And you're right. It's not just Poynter. Law and Crime even has pretty much taken a side on this. Even Court TV, some of the things that their anchors have said they kind of make it clear like whose side they're on. And it's not even just that though, but some of the images that they're using and the headlines, you see a headline and then you see a picture of Amber Heard and she's looking like concerned or something like that. It's like the way that it's being portrayed. I think it's pretty obvious whose side the media is on. There's one girl, I forget her name, with Law and Crime, but she took statements from Amber Heard's lawyers' opening statements. These are allegations. There's nothing that has come out yet that has proven these allegations. And she just ran with them and said like that they were a fact, and said Johnny Depp needs to take responsibility. And I'm like, well, wouldn't you wait and reserve your judgment until everything has come out? Because these are just opening statements. Both sides are making allegations. Both sides claim that the evidence that's going to come out at trial will prove their story. They can't both be right, but you can't have a judgment yet. It just started.
This is part of the article from Pointer. Even if this case between Depp and Heard follows prior legal precedent, it may have the effect of making survivors of this particular violence, like you said, we're watching our words because we are on YouTube, which I should also just add, they have already demonetized the video, which they do on this stuff immediately because of the AI. So I've requested a review. We'll see if that changes. But making survivors of violence who identify with Heard more hesitant to write about their experiences or share them with journalists. Nicole Froyo, a feminist researcher and journalist, is concerned that if Depp's defamation suit is successful, it could lead to some perpetrators of domestic violence trying to silence survivors. But you could also write a whole article on how if it's not successful and say the allegations are false, then you just encourage people to defame their the person that they don't like after getting divorced, or they have, still have harbored ill will towards without admitting their own faults in the relationship, and then just continuing some of these other cases of false allegations that have just ruined people's lives over the years. Right. So it's just interesting. You're right. Like there's just this subtle support for her, even maybe not so subtle in some cases, but I just thought it's interesting. This isn't even just a mainstream article. This is the think tank that's sort of supposed to be the gold standard for journalism. They've done a really crappy job with COVID, so it's not surprising that they would have bias in that particular case. But it does seem like that's what he's pushing back against. So tell me, like, he's there, she's there, right? They're both physically there.
Yeah, and they're both going to testify at some point.
Man, the court TV photographer who's got to stand there and shoot this. That's a lot of pressure. Yes. But also a fascinating assignment, I guess.
Yeah.
So you said Johnny Depp, first off, is very short, which is okay.
I was not expecting that. I'm sorry. I've seen his movies since I was young, and I was just surprised by that.
I have this theory about height and celebrity, because I think it was Freud who originally said that we associate authority and height. And so we think if you're taller, or you have some kind of authority position, that you should be tall, like we associate those two. I'm married to a guy who's 5'6", so I have nothing against short guys. But I get that all the time. Like when I would go out and do my reports and I'd meet people face to face, they were like, oh, you seem so much taller on TV. And I would think, how would you know that I'm taller? Like, you have nothing to compare me by. There would be no reason for you to think I'm tall. They also said you look skinnier in person, basically saying you're fat.
Nice.
Yeah, they say that all the time. You're much prettier and skinnier in person. That's
thanks.
What they say.
Gee.
They thought that was a compliment. So, yeah. So, okay. So what's the ambiance like in the courtroom? Like, what is there? Do they look at each other like, I'm going to get you? No, they just don't look at each other at all.
And I'm sure their lawyers have advised them not to look at each other because you've got the jury watching and they're going to be noticing that. What is interesting is Amber Heard is very tall, and each day that she has come in, like as the first day of trial, everybody's gathered in here, all these members of the public, they're giving out wristbands, right? So if you get to the courthouse very early, there's a limited number of wristbands that you can get. So as a member of the public, you can get in there. And so people are lining up, getting there super early in the morning, some as early as 5 a.m. I heard one lady say that she got here. There was a lady who traveled like from Australia. It's wild. There was a guy who's from LA that was an actor. He had this big sign that says like, it says something like, we believe you, Johnny, have faith, or something. I put that in my article, one of my articles, if people want to go on my Substack and read them, you'll be able to see some of the pictures I took of people that are there. But the atmosphere was very like excited. People were talking to each other and all kind of packed in the gallery. And as soon as Amber Heard walks in, the room just goes silent. Everybody's quiet for a minute, and then people start speaking in like these hushed tones. And I'm like, oh, this is so weird.
So thank you for telling people, because that was the next thing I was going to do. Yes, go to Christina's Substack. She writes under the name Radix Verum, Radix Verum, and this is your latest article
Yes.
right
Yes.
here. So, you are very thorough. I can assure people that if they follow you on these cases, that they're going to get information that you will not get anywhere else. So you should definitely go follow Christina, because you can follow all kinds of cases. It's not like, I don't mean to say that this is light, because it's not necessarily a light topic. Obviously, the
Right.
issue of domestic violence is not a light topic at all. However, given what it seems like is happening here with two adults who seem like they had a really messy relationship, and it's not necessarily as uh not as clear cut as maybe the narrative had, like we were talking about, had been proposed. I'm just curious, since you've covered really heavy stuff like surveillance state stuff, January 6th, Michigan, FBI, that kind of thing. Is there anything that you walk away from this saying this, there are comparisons, or it's just different, or when, just because you're listening, I mean, in all these cases you're trying to piece through what people are saying is true and what really is true. I'm just
Yeah,
curious
that's a
how
good
how
point.
I don't know, do you find anything different about this, or do you take the skills that you've learned from the other cases, or you've gleaned from the other cases, and bring it to something like this?
I think you sort of develop almost like a sixth sense about kind of like filtering out the mainstream narrative and trying to go through everything on your own. I don't even bother reading the mainstream articles about this stuff anymore. I like to go in and like dive at everything. I look directly at the documents. That's sort of how I am. Like, I want primary sources. I want to read the transcripts of everybody that has done depositions in this case. I think that's sort of how, and I kind of have a from working in law in the past, I have sort of an eye for detail, I guess. And I try to find these little things that maybe don't stand out to the regular person, but when you kind of put them all together, tell the true story. That's sort of what I want to do here, is with everything I cover, is kind of get to the truth. And I find
Mhm.
defamation to be particularly interesting because I've been defamed. I find it interesting to kind of like look at this stuff, and in defamation is very hard to prove. There's a very high legal threshold for meeting that. You have to show actual damages, you have to prove financial damages. So it's not easy to sue people for defamation. And I wanted to kind of follow this, just thinking it's an interesting thing that they're, obviously a very contentious battle here. But it's interesting too to kind of have these dueling narratives. On one side, there are people who are very pro Johnny Depp, and they sort of like look at him with rose colored glasses. They're like fans of his. And then you have people that are very pro Amber. They're kind of like believe all women. And I think
Mhm.
both of those are wrong. Both
Mhm.
of those ways of looking at things, they're very black and white thinking. No, people aren't like that. Things are not like that. It's not black and white. Things are more complex, and that's what I've seen so far in my what I've seen in just the past couple days at trial, is that you're kind of getting, in a way, a sort of insight into their marriage, what it was like being married, on a day-to-day basis, the sort of things that you would see. And you're also, in an interesting way, seeing that these people are just like you and I. They just have more money, but it's the same. They have the same fears, the same insecurities, maybe the same issues that regular people have. So I kind of found that interesting as well.
Mhm. That's such a good reminder to everybody watching, regardless of what the topic is, that if you're seeing two very clearly delineated sides that are at each other's throats, that it may be time for pause. Go to Christina's Substack, see if she's written about it, and then get a more thorough take on what's really going on. Because it is easy. I think just the human, probably there's something innate in all of us that just like wants to cut the world into sort of good guy versus bad guy, when reality is usually a lot more complex than that. Um, Jeff says the two of you are awesome together, but it's really Christina, because she's way smarter than I am and she does all the legwork, and then
No
I just
way.
threw out my wine. Okay. So one thing I did learn from you, which I did not get out of the stuff that I've been reading in mainstream news, is that there is a difference between libel and defamation,
Mhm.
and this is a defamation suit, not a libel suit. Could you explain that? And does it matter? Like, does that matter? Is one harder to, I guess, prove versus the other, or I don't know. Is there just a difference in the way those cases are adjudicated?
There is a difference. Libel is like verbal, it's basically verbal defamation, making a false claim about somebody verbally. It's like slander. Slander and libel, very similar. Defamation is in print. So I think that they're both, it's equally hard to prove though. And the prior case that was the libel case, that was the one that was in the UK. It's very different. That was not before a jury, that was before a judge. And there were certain things, even in their legal findings, that just kind of made you scratch your head, like something's not right with that. So I think that, Amber's legal team wanted to use that. Like, they filed a motion to dismiss the defamation case here in the United States, basically saying this has already been ruled on in the UK. So you basically can't bring the same argument or something, because they essentially found that the allegations that were in the article in the Sun were true. But again, there's new evidence that has come out that we didn't get to see in that case. So they filed that motion. That was denied. One of the things that is interesting in the legal sense for this defamation case is the fact that it is in Northern Virginia. There's very strong free speech laws here. So Amber's legal team, they're essentially making this about free speech. That's what her lawyer said in her opening statements, that they're public figures, right? And what she was talking about is something that is a matter of public interest, which is DV. And so they made a motion. They want to basically use the SLAPP laws about this. That the SLAPP laws are basically a law that was put in place to kind of prevent people from trying to shut down free speech for political reasons or whatever. So I think that it's interesting that she's allowed to use anti-SLAPP as her legal defense in this case. And one of the things her lawyers have pointed out is that she never actually names Johnny Depp in that 2018 article in the Washington Post. She talks about surviving DV, being a survivor, basically. She doesn't actually mention his name.
Mhm.
So that's what her lawyers have said. But Johnny's lawyers have said, well, it's essentially implied, and it's ruined his reputation, basically.
That was actually going to be my next question, because I was just wondering if I had missed that. And I know that that's what I had read she was alleging. Like, so she has, I think, posted on Instagram recently that she still has love for Johnny, and that she didn't name him specifically. And I don't know if that's just complete, just a public relations stunt, if they really just hate each other behind the scenes. But I don't know, what do you get? What's your feel like as you're listening to the testimony? And you wrote that, I'll go back to your Substack, but I think it wasn't the title of your last piece that the key witness said that she had never been hit.
Yes.
So, it's weird, because like, either if that's true, like she was not hit, and then she still writes this piece, either she really wasn't talking about Johnny Depp, and but she didn't say it wasn't him. So let's just be clear. Like, she may have known people.
She has gone on other podcasts, and she has specifically accused him of DV.
Okay. So so then that makes more sense then. Yeah, because it just seems like either she's a total psychopath, like where she's like literally living in an alternate universe, and she just writes one thing and then writes another. I dated a guy like that in college, so I know that exists. It's just like she's not lying because she really believes the delusional reality. I mean, that's possible. There are people out there like that.
There are. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
So, okay. So you're saying, so she has done that. So like, so when you're sitting in this trial, are you getting the sense that she's just protecting her butt, or that she was like, no, I really didn't, it wasn't, and then why isn't he also suing her for like the other, like when you're talking about the other stuff that she said, on podcasts and stuff. Why isn't that also part of the suit? Why is it just this
That's a
one
very good
article?
point. And why also hasn't he sued the Washington Post, which typically happens in a defamation case? You would sue not only the person who defamed you, but the publication who published it. He's not done that. I find that kind of, in a way, I have mild suspicion about that, almost as if like he knew he didn't want to open that can of worms with the Washington Post. It seems to me that it's more of like a marital dispute, right? That they both sort of have it out for each other. And I think they both kind of want to get revenge on one another. And I think that's basically what this is about. Their demeanor in the courtroom is obviously very controlled. Number one, they're both actors. So that's something you have to keep in mind too. Anything that you see, are they just acting? Are they just playing a role? These are people who dealt with public relations for their entire careers. They've got teams of managers who tell them about things like this, about your posture, your body language, don't make eye contact, don't do this or that. So, you know, I try not to put too much stock in that. But from what I've seen, Johnny Depp has been very sort of stoic, I guess. He's just been kind of sitting there. He doesn't really turn back and look at the people in the gallery. And most people that I've talked to that are there in support of Johnny Depp. There were two girls who came from all the way from New York to be here for the trial. One of them is in medical school, and she's like, oh yeah, I've got to go back, but then I might come back again because this thing could drag on for like 6 weeks. There might be 100 different witnesses that get called in this trial. So it's just very interesting that you've got all these people that are there to support him. He's not really looking back and making eye contact with anybody, which I think is probably smart and probably a good thing. But Amber has been. When she came in on the second day, she looked directly in my eyes and she smiled at me. I was on her side of the courtroom at that point, though. Maybe she thought I was there for her as like a Amber supporter, but she was kind of doing that with other people as well that were there, kind of making eye contact and smiling at them. And maybe in a way, it's just sort of what to try to humanize herself, I guess. I don't know. But it is very, it's just very strange. You know, when you're in there in the courtroom, you're like in the third or fourth row I've been in, and it's sort of like you're very close to everything. You're very close to them, and you're able to kind of watch them all day. And it's hard too to be in there all day and not get tired and kind of like maintain your composure and just sit there like this. I know at one point I saw myself on the Law and Crime live stream, and I'm like,
nice.
Like,
yeah, you gotta watch your facial expressions. I know.
Like, oh, great. You look great, Christina.
So Nate, who's a lawyer, YouTuber, far more successful at YouTube than I am, especially staying on YouTube. Virginia has defamation through implication, which is rare. So what does that mean? Do we know what that means?
I don't.
We
I'd
need him
love to have
I'll look
Nate
it up.
explain more to us about this. I am not a lawyer, thank goodness.
I'm looking it up. I asked him if he wanted to join and send him a link. So if he's watching, he can join us. Yeah, come on. We'll just
come hang out with us.
We won't take too much of your time. I think it's almost what is it there? 4:30 or something.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what this says. The Virginia Defamation Law blog. Maybe this is a resource everybody should be looking at.
Yeah, right.
I'm not even going to read this because I don't even know whether a particular tort is deemed intentional as opposed to merely negligent can have far-reaching implications. Intentional torts and negligent torts are treated very different when it comes to things like insurance coverage, sovereign immunity, and recoverable damages. Defamation is one of those torts that cannot be easily characterized, as the degree of intent required to hold someone liable for defamation differs depending on the circumstances.
Right.
Like, so implication maybe is implication then like less of a bar that you have to jump over? Like it's just implied, I guess.
Yeah, that's what this sounds like. Yeah, and so she doesn't name him, but maybe it's implied that it's him. I mean, I think that's what she was doing with her article for sure. And I do think that depending on how this trial goes, he might have a pretty good chance of proving that she did act maliciously and with the intent to sort of destroy his reputation and his career. Yeah, so that's interesting.
Well, maybe that it also explains why the question about why Virginia, like why this article, because it gave them the chance to sue in Virginia, and because he
Yeah.
doesn't really care about the Washington Post. He just cares about dogging her,
Yeah,
maybe.
that's certainly what it sounds like.
Okay, any other just interesting stories that have come out of court over the last couple of days?
Yes. Okay. So the first day we had the opening statements, which of course is going to be each side's attempt to kind of get their narrative out there and sort of frame it how they want. So those were the opening statements. Both were pretty graphic and pretty bizarre. I would encourage people. I have linked the first full day of the trials in my article. You can go and just watch it yourself. Everybody should be doing that. Don't read what the mainstream media is saying about it. Watch it yourself and come to your own conclusions. On the first day, the first witness was Johnny Depp's sister and manager, Christy Dombrowski. And she kind of talked about how she believed they had like a volatile relationship. She also talked about his relationship with his mother, his family. Apparently, his mother was abusive. And what she said was that when his mother became abusive, the way that he would deal with that was to flee, right? It was to retreat. He would leave. So it's kind of establishing that this is how he deals with conflict. This is how he deals with trauma or an altercation. His response is not fight, it's flight. So that's what I think she was trying to outline. Then on the second day, she was back on the stand as the first witness, and she was put under cross-examination by Amber Heard's legal team. And they were asking her things like, well, you're his manager. You kind of have a financial stake in this. And, maybe that is why you're doing this. Or that was sort of like the implication I think they were trying to make with her. And they were asking her questions about his use of like drugs and alcohol. One person they mentioned, Dr. Kipper, was somebody who treated him back in 2014 for pain medication addiction. And they brought out text messages between her and Amber Heard where they sort of talked about him going on benders and her asking, well, where are the kids? And they were saying basically, this is proof that you were concerned and you knew that his abuse of drugs and alcohol was having an impact on the relationships in his life. And she kind of said, well, no, I knew it was a problem. I was concerned about this specific issue with the pain medicine. But she said that she thought Amber sort of like was dramatic about things. And she also said that Amber would tell her stories and they were not supported by other people that were around Johnny, because at this time, this is after Pirates of the Caribbean success. He has people like staff that are around him daily, like assistants, managers, things like that, and they would not support the stories that she was telling her. So I think she did a pretty good job the second day of sort of not allowing her, the other attorneys to kind of like ask her leading questions and stuff. But the second witness, I think, was the star of the day. He was a friend of Johnny Depp's. Since they were teenagers, they met in South Florida. His name was Isaac Baruch. They sort of played in a band together. And Johnny goes to California. Isaac ends up going there and he starts working for him. At that point, I think this was in around 1985, Johnny Depp owned a famous club in West Hollywood called the Viper Room. So he starts working there. And I guess he wanted to be sort of an artist. And he talks about how Johnny Depp basically became like a patron of his and started kind of financially supporting him so he could pursue this career in art. He came off as a very credible witness because he was there for key events in their relationship. There's a building called the East Columbia building where Johnny Depp owned several penthouse suites. He basically owned the top 2 floors of this building. And so he puts Isaac up in penthouse number 2, and he and Amber move into penthouse number 1. So Isaac lived next door to them for, I think, 3 years and 7 months. during that time, he says that he got to observe their relationship, and he actually said that they were very, I think he used the word kind, loving, and peaceful with each other. For the most part, he only witnessed a couple fights between them. But he also talked about how, her friend, Rocky Pennington, that she grew up with, she moved into one of these penthouse suites with her significant other, Josh Drew. Her Amber's sister, Whitney, came in, and she took her and her husband lived in another of these penthouse suites. So they're all sort of like living off of Johnny Depp's large ass, I guess. He owns these. They're all living there rent free. And so he kind of talks about like this specific night where supposedly they had this really big fight, and Johnny allegedly beat her. She claims he gave her 2 black eyes, split her lip, and trashed the place. And he was very, very, the way he described it, he came off as very credible. He talked about, this is what I saw on this night at this time. I came up from out of the elevators and there's shattered glass everywhere. There's a puddle of wine. There's wine dripping down the wall. And he sees Josh like in the door, and he goes, what happened? And he says that Josh just kind of goes, rough day. So he doesn't ask him about it. The next day, he sees Amber. He's very close to her, maybe 3 feet from her. He says she's not wearing makeup. He can see her. He doesn't see any bruises. He doesn't see any swelling. He doesn't see any cuts. He doesn't see any redness on her face. And then he talks about kind of what he observed over the next couple days with her changing the locks and sort of other things that went down. And, when he talked about her, he said that he fell in love with her the way that Johnny did. He said that she had great teeth, and everybody in the courtroom started laughing. He was somebody, I think, that just because of his personality and some of the like weird stuff he would say, he had like the entire courtroom loved this guy. So when her attorneys tried to kind of cross-examine him, they didn't have a very good time of it. Like everybody seemed to kind of like the guy, and he just sounded like he was telling the truth. And he seemed like the kind of person that, yeah, Johnny may have been supporting him financially and being a patron of his artwork, but he seemed like the kind of person that would have told him like, you're being an asshole or something. So he recounted the 2 times where he heard them fighting, and it was like verbal altercations. At one point, Johnny's drunk and she's in either London or New York City. I think he said New York, but her attorneys say London. And he said that they were on the phone, and Johnny's accusing her of having somebody else in the hotel room with her, and she's going, come on, baby, why are you being like that? And he said it was so weird because Johnny's drunk and he's upset. Amber sounds intoxicated, and he said she was taunting him and that she'd call back and just say the same things. And then he just grabbed the phone and said, this is going nowhere. And he just hangs up. That was like their fight. And then he said he saw maybe one other time where they had like a disagreement, and it was about Amber kicking her sister out of one of the penthouses, and Johnny just said, well, you just deal with it and figure it out. Like that was what he said he saw. He said that he didn't witness any abuse or anything like that. And then at one point, her attorney said, oh, well, you're angry at Amber, aren't you? You're upset. And he just said, I'm upset about this malicious lie that has gone around the world and has destroyed so many lives. And the way he said it, he just went into this little spiel, and her attorneys like let him do it. It did not look good for her, but they kept going back and trying to trip him up with his story. Like they would bring up something from his deposition from 2019, and his story never changes. They're asking, so you have to imagine that this has been going on for 6 years, this litigation. He's remembering a night from May 22nd, 2016, and they're asking, are you sure it was at 9:30? Where did you see these people on the next day? And when were they changing the locks? And who was there? And where was it? They've got a floor plan out of the penthouses, and he's every time he has to go recount what happened, his story doesn't change. So I just think I thought he was a very good witness for Johnny Depp.
Christina, real fast, I totally forgot. It just hit me that I remember hearing about Johnny Depp's financial issues and like how he said he hadn't paid taxes in 17 years and all this stuff. So yeah, like deep in like $650 million, like almost to the point
Wow.
where it's like, I'm not even going to bother. Like if I owed 650 million to the government, I'd probably just be like, you know what? Come get me. I don't know. But it does still seem like even though he does not actually sound like the richest guy on earth right now, I don't know. The more I hear about it, maybe the 50 million wouldn't hurt him, but it still sounds like the heart of this is just like getting the info out there. And I don't know,
Yes.
maybe that for him serves a purpose of being able to work again or
Right.
whatever, because he needs the money that way. Like the case itself is not the golden egg. It's where this could land him down the road.
Yeah, that's a very good point. If there's evidence that comes out that shows that he did not beat her, but actually he was the victim of narcissistic abuse from a bipolar manic cluster B sociopath of a woman, that could help him.
Okay, I am actually texting Nate because he looks like he's in the waiting room, but he has no audio or video. So I am hoping he can hear me right now.
I want him to come in. I want to get his take on this too.
So we can have an actual attorney talk about this. So what are we expecting in tomorrow's case? Or I've heard everything from like Elon Musk has been called to the stand, but you're saying if he doesn't show up, I mean, he owns Twitter now, so basically he doesn't own it. Sorry, he's trying to buy it. He doesn't own it yet.
He wants to.
He wants to own Twitter.
Elon Musk, James Franco. There could be a slew of famous people that get called to testify. The final witness yesterday was very, very boring. It was like a property manager of the East Columbia building where they all lived in these penthouse apartments. They were going through security footage. And, this does not help Johnny in some ways because we get to see footage of him in the elevator and he's kind of like going back and forth. He looks like he's intoxicated. He's smoking in the elevator. But there are certain parts of her story where she said it hit her with he'd thrown a bottle and done all this stuff. And you can just see, does he look like that he's just done that? Where's the liquor bottle that was supposed to be in his hand that she said was in his hand when he's in this elevator? He doesn't have it. And so, but you can also see her and her friends laughing in the elevator when she supposedly was just beaten. It's very, very weird. So that was super boring. And I have to be honest, I was almost falling asleep. But earlier this morning, we had her assistant. This is somebody who worked for Amber Heard as her personal assistant testify. And she basically said that Amber was an incredibly abusive woman, that she lied, was manipulative. She talked about Amber Heard's abuse of alcohol and drugs, because Amber's attorneys have basically said that, look, Johnny Depp was a drug-addled maniac. He would go on these benders where he would get drunk and intoxicated. Then he would, abuse her. And her assistant basically testified that while she would get intoxicated and she would be very verbally abusive, and she would berate people. She said that she was not paid well by Amber Heard. She had made a statement of facts where she claimed that Amber Heard stole her story of SA and passed it off as her own. And she just seemed to have nothing but disdain and contempt for Amber. She talked about her being on medication, where she said that the side effects were that Amber would go into these like manic states. She recounted a time where they were negotiating her salary, and she said that Amber got into her face, got 4 inches from her face, and was screaming and spitting in her face.
Great opportunity to bring Nate in for the spitting part. Nate, if you can hear us, Nate is is that
Yes.
little guy in the middle of the screen.
I'm on my cell phone, so this is it's bad.
It's probably because you're drinking a lot of Allison wine promo right now and you don't want people to see. Okay, Nate, the question that we were talking about that you brought up was defamation by implication or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, defamation by
What does that mean?
implication is something that's not common in the United States, but essentially for defamation, you have to show that the statements were about the plaintiff. But here, the statements aren't about Johnny Depp in the sense of she doesn't say it, right? She doesn't say it. But if you can, if there's a strong enough implication that the statements are about someone, then the court will allow a defamation case to proceed. Now, this defamation by implication started with a case in Virginia that where a mother had a son who died at, I believe, elementary school, and he had an EpiPen. And there was like a procedure that they had, get the EpiPen, you make sure you have an extra one, you pack with the kids, you let the teachers know, like everything. So they had all that in place, right? And the mother actually had all that in place, and the kid died. So when the kid died, the school came out with this campaign saying, hey, Jimmy died, but make sure that doesn't happen to your child by having this, having that, having this, having that. You don't be the next, don't let your child be the next Jimmy. But the mom was like, well, hold on. We did all that stuff. We did all these things right. And you're making it seem like because I didn't do these things, my child died. So she sued the school district for defamation. But in all of the products that they had, all the stuff that they're putting out, they actually didn't really name Jimmy and really didn't name the mom. They just were saying, well, this is somebody died because of this. And this is why we want you to do it because, of these implications. But the court said, well, since he was the only one that died in this particular way during this time frame, it's obvious that you could only be talking about him in that situation because he was the only person that died. So they allowed the defamation case to go forward through implication. She was, by implication, she was the person they were talking about, and she settled for a couple of $1 million. So that's rare. You're generally not. Most states don't allow you to do that, but Virginia is one of those states that do allow you to do that, and that's why Johnny sued in Virginia, and that's why even though both him and Amber are from California, he was able to haul her into a Virginia court because that's where the Washington Post published the statements, and suing her in Virginia because those laws are a lot friendlier. In California, he wouldn't have made it to a trial, but in Virginia, he does.
Do you think that has a reason to do with why it didn't go after the Washington Post? He's just going after her?
Well, to be honest with you, it's because the Washington, he cannot sue the Washington Post because of actual malice. See, Washington Post can say, I don't. Of course, you know the reporting works. Generally, you have to have two sources for everything. Blah 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 blah. And you generally there's a team behind you to let you know that if you can publish something, that's safe. The Washington Post here has something that's safe. Number one, they put it under their opinion column, so this was her opinion. And the second, so they weren't publishing it. And then number two, they had somebody who's given a firsthand account of the incident, which is Amber Heard. So so Johnny Depp would not be able to get them for actual malice or defamation because they're protected because they published it under an opinion section, and on top of that, she's a firsthand witness to the thing. So you can publish these are her allegations. So they're totally protected. They wouldn't be able to get to the Washington Post.
Okay, Nate, real quick while we still have you, I'm on my locals page, AllisonMorrow.locals.com, where you can submit questions ahead of time for interviews. So if you're watching this somewhere else, you should go do that. And Nate's on locals. Nate, what are you? NateTheLawyer.locals.com?
Yeah, NateTheLawyer.locals.com.
Okay. And so basically this is a couple part question, but it has to do with whether he really has a chance. And asks, Overthinker asks, I've heard that it is pretty difficult to sue someone for defamation as a public figure. Does this only apply if the defamation is committed by the media or for private people like ex-partners of a celebrity? And does Depp have a real chance to win the trial, or is the trial itself a way to prove his point mainly in the eyes of the public?
Well, two things. So I've read all the court documents. I've read all the complaints and everything. If I don't believe Johnny Depp has a strong case. Can he win his case? Yes, anything can happen, but I don't think his case is strong. I believe that this is a PR case. Now, I've had clients in the past who want to go into court, and the reason why they want to go into court because they feel like they've been wronged, and there's no settlement to be had, right? I want people to know that I've been wrong. Taylor Swift recently did this when she sued the guy for $1, right? Because she wanted the jury to come back and say that she was wrong, so she sued the guy for $1. In this case, Johnny Depp knows Amber Heard doesn't have $50 million in gifts, and it's probably judgment proof in that sense of getting $50 million. But I think what he wants is his story to be put out, because when you're canceled in our society, that means people don't listen to you anymore. You can't put your story out. So he was in that position where she said that this happened to her. He was canceled, lost all these jobs and stuff, and couldn't get his story out. People just thought he was an abuser. But in this way, you do get your story out, and you do get it out in a sense where people have to listen to you, and you get all those witnesses out. And now, just like we're doing now, we're talking about it. So I think the win for Johnny Depp is the trial in of itself, because now he gets to say, I wasn't the abuser, and here's all the evidence. Whatever way it comes out, right? Whether you win or lose, that's, I think, irrelevant. The point that's relevant to him is he's gotten his story out and can possibly save his career, because he's saying, I was never the abuser. She was the abuser. And now, but I was canceled.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah. And for both of you, the final question here was, do you think it will hurt or help? Because there is just a lot of mess coming out. And Nate, we were saying earlier how, I mean, it's got to be pretty bad for you to want your dirty laundry aired, so that it goes from basically being like worst case scenario, you're an abuser, but like best case scenario, you're just a SHIT show. You know what I mean? And that's what it seems like is going on here. Like, that's what we're shooting for here, is to just come across as like, we had a really toxic relationship. I'm kind of a mess. She's kind of a mess. Like, that's the win here for Johnny Depp. So like, I don't know. Do you think it's going to help or hurt?
But Allison, you put yourself in the position of Johnny Depp. He's lost all his movies, right? They were doing Pirates of the Caribbean, gone. Amazing Beast, right? Gone. All his lead roles. Nobody's calling him anymore, right? He's $100 million in debt. He is at the proverbial bottom, right? And the one thing that's put him here in this purgatory are these things that she said. Now he's saying he can prove that they're false. So for him, this is all, what's it worth to get your career back? I think for him, it's worth a couple of $100,000 to go in court and show as evidence, because even as we speak right now, people are now starting to call Johnny Depp again. People are starting to see the evidence and say, hey, Johnny Depp wasn't as bad as we thought he was. Like, if you look at even the narrative against Johnny Depp being this horrible abuser has changed just in these 3 days. Look at the headlines. It's a different story we're talking about now. We're talking about Amber Heard being cold, being calculated. She looks mean. She looks like an ice queen.
She does. I don't know who dressed her, or if she has some stylist or something, but she does. You're right. She's sitting there kind of like, she looks very stern, and the way she's dressed is very severe. I don't know who came up with this, but she's, wearing like gray or black every day in these like pantsuits like Hillary Clinton. She's got her hair pulled up in braids on her head. She just kind of looks very like a cold woman. You're right. Yeah.
And I don't know who's doing that to her, but she's looking cold. He's looking friendly. He's laughing at his friend's jokes. His friend's up there crying about him. That, I think people forget litigation is definitely about the courtroom, but it's also about the performance in the courtroom. And right now we're seeing a masterful performance by Jeremy Zett's team to change the PR perspective and try to win the case. They're trying to win the case, but I think the PR perspective right now has changed dramatically, and most people haven't noticed it. But I think if you sit down and think about what do you think about these people now after you've seen a week of trial? And I bet you most people are saying she's an ice cold B and he's a sympathetic, star.
Yes.
That's
and even her own assistant today talking about how she would berate her, the awful things she would say to her, how she would go into these manic states and send her the slew of text messages at 2:00 in the morning. And then when she talks about Johnny Depp, she says, Johnny Depp, every time I was around him, when I brought my 4-year-old son Max there, Johnny taught him to play the guitar. Johnny had his makeup done for some role, and he came up and surprised Max and said, who do you think I am? And Max was like, oh, is that you, Johnny? When she was telling that story, the cameras show Johnny, like he's smiling like it's a fond memory or something that he remembers, like that was him spending time with this little boy and being I guess a good role model for him. And then when she's talking about Amber, it's just like this woman does not seem very sympathetic at all. And according to this lady, Amber Heard stole her story of SA and passed it off as her own. She says she's a pathological liar, basically. It just seems to be going very well for Johnny. This is day 3. And so far, that's what we've seen. And let's not even get into the allegations of Amber Heard taking a dump on his bed and then writing with poop on the walls. It's just so bizarre.
Christina, I would ask you right now, if somebody asked you after the first week, is Johnny the monster? Who's the monster in this relationship? I don't think many people would say Johnny. I think most people would say Amber.
Yes, and I've been talking to people on lunch break and stuff, all members of the public who've been showing up for the trial, and every single person I've interacted with there is there to support Johnny. They're Justice for Johnny people, everyone that's holding signs, they're all in support of Johnny Depp. And even I was talking to one of the court officers when I was at the cafeteria getting my chicken tenders. He was in line behind me and he said that Johnny Depp had signed autographs for all of the kids of the officers. And it was just this little like anecdote. I was like, oh, that's kind of endearing. But I didn't hear that Amber had done that. So
I don't
think it's just sort of like, sure. Maybe he's not, maybe he has a problem with drugs and alcohol or something like that, but he does not sound like the kind of person that was flying into rages and assaulting people. And another thing that I think is important to keep in mind, not one of his prior girlfriends have come forward to say, yes, me too, right? And back up her allegations. And 2 of these women are pretty famous, wealthy women. There'd be no reason for them to keep quiet about it. Like Winona Ryder, she's a powerful woman. If he had done something to her, she could easily speak up. I don't think she'd have a reason to be afraid to do so. So it just kind of seems very strange.
How much bigger is Amber compared to Johnny?
She's taller.
Like a lot taller?
Not a lot taller, but she seems kind of towering in a way.
Well, I mean, the reason I ask is I also wonder with these, physical assault allegations and stuff, like who has the physical advantage. I mean, I don't know, if she's like a foot taller than he is, like, I feel like that's an interesting detail. Okay. Wait, one last question that did come in on ROKFIN was, say Johnny loses, does it still work in his favor?
Well, if Johnny, I don't think Johnny he doesn't really care about the win. He cares about getting the story out, right? So the story's out, but they don't cut him a check. Like, you don't win the defamation suit. I still count that as a win for Johnny because he's gotten out the story. You're going to see the video. You're going to see the thing. For him, I think it's more about getting a story out and changing the PR narrative. What's more important to Johnny is the PR, not what he believes he can get from Amber Heard. And I think Amber is the exact opposite. She's trying to save her career because all her career plans are now on hold, because if she comes out of this being this whole manipulative liar and all this other stuff, nobody's going to hire her. So, the battle here is for your career after this. Now, if he wins, I think that makes it even better for him. But I really think he's out to really get the story out. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that whoever is styling this woman, if she was my client, I would say we got to put her in something. We got to make her sympathetic to. We have to make the men want her and the women want to sympathize with her. That's how she needs to dress. She doesn't need to dress like this whole, wicked witch of the West looking to take Dorothy, right? She needs to be, and I know that's cold. I know some people are going to be like, oh, Nate is so talking this way, but I'm just saying there's the woke reality of, hey, we want to pretend it doesn't matter. But then there's the reality where, when you're looking at someone sitting over there, if she was sitting in her Sunday best looking like she's about to go to Sunday school, you just feel different about it and you relate to her differently than if she's a high-powered professional looking like she can hurt Johnny. Like right now we're talking about who can physically hurt who, right? Yes. But if she was over there in a sundress looking very, petite and vulnerable, we're having a different conversation. So that's just the way you play the legal game. I know you're not supposed to say that stuff now, but that's the reality of the situation.
But it's true.
You know what I mean?
It's a performance. Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. You're right. And what she was wearing yesterday, that weird, it almost looked like a pilot's uniform. She's wearing this blazer that has these gold buttons on it, and it just looked like these like shoulder pads and stuff. She looks like she's wearing like a naval outfit or like a pilot's outfit. It was just so strange. She came in there and I'm like, oh, she looks like she's almost wearing a military uniform. Whose idea was that? What are you doing?
Maybe they think it's like because she's like, you know, I don't take crap. Like I'm not gonna be the victim anymore. Do you think it's something about like, you know, I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, and I'm here to be a strong woman and take it for the team. Like I'm gonna represent all other women, and that kind of brings me to my like final I swear question, which is just the fact that we're having this trial and that it is changing some people's minds, and like you're saying that Johnny's reputation is gaining a recovery. Are we in a post Me Too or a post Believe All Women era now? Like or does this bring us into that or edge towards that? I'm just curious what you think this does, like as an effect on not just them specifically, but these cases and that era of like whatever a woman says about a guy must be listened to and believed.
Oh, I think definitely. The two young ladies that I talked to, one of them has made a public post about male victims of abuse, and even SA. She said something like this, according to the CDC, 1 in 10 men will experience this, and we silence them and their voices. But at the same time, we're told that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. So it's just so confusing, like this, the sort of woke narrative surrounding of believe all women, only women can be victims. But on the other end, like they can also be men. It's just so strange. And these young girls, I mean, they have to be in their early 20s or something. Like I said, the one girl's in medical school. It was interesting to see them talking about things like one girl said, oh, I looked up narcissistic abuse, and I think that Johnny was a victim of narcissistic abuse. And the other one talking about male victims of domestic violence, I thought was very, very interesting for the younger generation. That's the kind of thing that they're talking about. And I think that it is different. We are in a post-Me Too world.
Well, Nate, wait, maybe he's back. He left for a second. Nate, any final thoughts? No, you're good. We're going to wrap it soon anyway, but you can totally go. I know you're living it up in New York. They probably, need you somewhere right now.
No, I'm cool. I'm right here with my daughters. We're waiting for mommy. But I do want to say, Christina, it was wonderful meeting you, and your take is 100% on point. It makes me feel bad because I really don't have anything to say behind you. It's like, my gosh, you said it all.
That's why I bring her on. She's like one of the best real actual reads the documents journalists out there. Yeah. Unlike me, who just promotes coffee all the time and wine. Right? Nate,
I need coffee.
Yeah, she drinks it. Nate, did you know that Johnny Depp's tattoo that used to say Winona now just says Wino on it?
What? I didn't know that.
Wino forever.
That's Wino forever. Yeah. Which, like, I would love for him to become an AllisonWinePromo.com customer, but I'm also concerned that maybe wine is not probably in his best interest at this point. So I'm letting it go. All right. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, no, I was saying about them talking about the purple pills earlier. Like, yeah, we're gonna party with some purple stuff, and then it was like, well, what do you want to say what that is? Not really. I don't know what the purple stuff is. She's lying. Yeah. She knows exactly what the purple stuff is.
She did.
But I do want to say, at the end of the day, one thing that this trial is going to do about the movement, because that's what you asked about, and this your final question was about the movement. This is, I think, the culmination of the whole believe. First, it was believe all women, no matter what, right? Just believe the allegations and make the man suffer. And then it became, well, hold on, sometimes these people lie, right? So now let's evaluate the evidence. And I think Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is one of those cases from the beginning where she just said something, everybody believed her, and he had real world consequences. Now this case is going to see, does the law catch up to that? Is the law now going to hold cancel culture responsible? Right, and she's the person who did it. So if she is found guilty, it's going to be the law, I think, going to be correcting some of these wrongs and saying, if you're going to cancel someone and you know this person can be canceled for you saying this stuff, then you're going to be held responsible financially for saying stuff that we know is false. And I think that's the culmination of this whole thing. And hopefully it will let the next person know who wants to make up false allegations, if they are false, to be careful. And I do agree with the confusion, because with all women, now you ask somebody, what's a woman? And they say they don't know, right? The Supreme Court justices don't even know what women are. So it's, everything is all confusing now, but eventually we'll finally get it, hopefully.
Nate, thank you for being a part of the stream at the last minute. I appreciate it.
Yes, it was nice meeting you, Nate. I appreciate it.
All right, tell the kids we said hi. I'm going to take you out of the stream. Have a good rest of your night.
Take care, guys.
Bye. Well, something that Johnny Depp could easily drink and probably does need some of is coffee. So go to twinenginecoffee.com/Allison if you think Johnny Depp should have a good cup of Nicaraguan coffee, USDA certified organic, or tea. I think we talked about this last time, Christina. I know you're a coffee drinker, not a wine drinker, but if you drink tea as well, this tastes a lot like a black tea. Katura tea, you make it out of the coffee fruit, and I cold brew mine for 24 hours. It's actually really good. It tastes a lot like black tea, like I said, and it's USDA certified organic and also high altitude. So twinenginecoffee.com/Allison, support my work. And Christina, any closing thoughts? Like, say everybody go to Radix Verum on Substack, because you're in it for the long haul, right? I mean, I'm
going to be covering this as long as it goes. So I encourage everybody to follow my work, and you'll probably hear little tidbits that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So just thank you for having me on. I love talking about this stuff. I appreciate it.
And my husband, who's traveling, says, damn, I just miss Nate. But it's okay, because the producer is still asleep. So no one is going to give you a hard time.
That lasted this whole time.
I'm shocked, because she's like, just over there. And when she was younger, she was a really like heavy sleeper. But the older she gets, the lighter the sleeper she is. So I was a little nervous. That's why I told Christina ahead of time, if I just don't come back to you, just keep talking about something. I'm sure you can find something to talk about, because I probably am trying to get my daughter back to sleep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, originally we said we were going to go 15 minutes. We went an hour and 5 minutes.
I know.
Like, So, everybody go over to Radix Verum on Substack or allisonmar.locals.com. Tomorrow, it's like, your producer is in the background too. Tomorrow I have actually I put allisonmar.locals back up. Tomorrow I have a water expert coming on. I don't think I'm going to do it live, because we may be talking about topics that veer into community guidelines, but it should be really interesting. Everything you've ever wanted to know about water, and the crap in your water and stuff. And, it may have something to do with cell phones, but I'm not even gonna go on that topic, because you just can't talk about cell phone, whatever. Anyway, I'm going to be called all kinds of things for just even suggesting that, but
that sounds interesting though.
It is really interesting. It's fascinating. Like EMF, radiation, water, all that stuff, because we're like almost 100% water. So it'll be really interesting. So go to allisonmar.locals.com, join my community. You can submit questions ahead of time. And then you'll get a little clip of that conversation on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll get it everywhere else if you're on their other platforms. So at least go somewhere else. And, you go to Locals and just be there for free. On the other parts, you can platforms as well, just to comment. You pay a subscription fee, but it's worth it, because you get sourdough recipes, horses, toddlers, and then full stream, like with people like Christina. So Christina, thanks again. Thank you everybody for watching. And we'll get Christina back when the trial's over, or if something else crazy happens, you'll come back on.
Yes, which I'm sure there will be. So I will definitely come back.
Okay. Thank you so much. See you guys next time.